So we have Todd here with us today, ready to dive into some really interesting insights on what the publishing industry looks like today, the beginning of 2026, and where it is going, specifically looking at Todd's opinions on how publishers can fully monetize and maximize their relationship with their small and medium business advertisers, a community that is also really shaping. We see a lot of interesting trends in advertisers' appetite for technology and specifically for AI. These are all topics that Todd has spoken about in many different opportunities, and we're really excited to diving into more of that today. Todd, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Rachel. I'm glad to be here.
You have over 25 years of experience in this industry, and you've really witnessed the evolution of how the last 25 years have pretty much torn apart the traditional industry and rebuilt it with brand new building blocks. Can you talk to us a little bit about the secret sauce for leading publishers, how they're successfully unlocking untraditional revenue, maybe specifically in the last year or two?
Sure. If there is a secret sauce, I think it's probably that those who are going to win really will be those who will stop selling media as inventory and they'll really start selling it as a growth system, one that you can measure. In 2026, publishers who really unlock non-traditional revenue really have three things in my mind. Number one, it's a repeatable go-to-market system. It looks like something that you have in the SaaS industry. It's not one-off campaigns. It's monthly and annual recurring revenue. The second one really is proof of value. It's the proof of the outcomes that the advertiser is looking for. It's not what we would call vanity metrics, right? It's not just numbers for numbers' sake. It's something that the business can really see how they can retain and expand their customers. And the third one really is some type of proprietary value that their competitors can't really copy. So it's first-party data, it's community trust, it's local relationships, it's the distribution. That's what media companies have that sets them apart and really that they can leverage for their advertisers. And so really for me, it's non-traditional revenue. It's not magic, right? It's being able to go from we run campaigns to we really help you grow customers consistently. And then we really operationalize that for you for a recurring revenue model. So the way I say it really is this: stop selling inventory and start selling a business growth system.
I love that. Okay, so our next question is, what shift do you expect to see in the services local businesses buy, and what will this look like by the end of 2026?
Across TV, newspaper, radio, everybody has their way of thinking how it works, but really, ultimately, businesses are still going to care about reach. We all want to know that we're reaching the target audience that we're trying to reach, and that's always been something that media companies have been focused on, but we aren't looking for that. I don't think SMBs are looking for that as the end-all be-all of what they're doing. It's not just about reach. I think by the end of this year, the spend really is going to focus more on the outcomes. It's not just X amount of people saw your ad or X amount of people downloaded a white paper or whatever. It's going to be, what was the outcome that I was looking for? Yes, it's going to be leads or downloads. It certainly is booked appointments, it's quotes and so forth. It's going to be foot traffic, but ultimately it's going to be, how did that lead to revenue? How can I tie what my media company has helped me do to something that rang a cash register? And there's really, for me, two things that are driving that. SMBs are overwhelmed. They have so many different choices and they're skeptical of what they're being sold. They're trying to do as much of this in-house as they can, but they're overwhelmed. They don't necessarily have the right personnel and so forth. Okay. And the second part is they're being trained by the platforms, by Facebook, by Google, by others, to expect really getting that loop closed for them, something that shows them attribution, something that gives them feedback. So the publishers that keep selling impressions, they're going to lose those opportunities to those providers who can really draw a line between the spend to the conversion. So for me, the shift really is about managing growth. The publisher opportunity is to become more like a local growth partner, right? Someone who works with the business, not just a channel. So I'll encapsulate that in what I would say is reach really is a feature It's the outcomes that are the product.
That was great. I know you've been a really strong advocate for, I guess we could call it like the SaaS-ification of media. So you're basically helping traditional companies apply software as a service principles to their revenue models. So for a publisher that's accustomed to a one-off campaign sell, what does it actually mean to run a media company like a software business? And why is this transformation so critical?
Media companies have been used to forever thinking about their work with their advertisers as campaigns, right? This campaign is going to start, here's where it's going to end, here's the creative that goes along with it, here's everything that goes with the flight. That's what media companies are used to. But that's not how SaaS companies think about it. SaaS companies onboard a user or a customer, and they keep them for a long amount of time. That's why they measure in monthly recurring revenue and annual recurring revenue. So it's to stop thinking about campaigns and to start thinking about retention. When you bring that advertiser on, how do you keep them? How do you show them value on a monthly basis such they continue to return, such as they continue to buy more, right? It's really what the SaaS companies have done well. It's the discipline of going to a monthly promise, to getting the customer onboarded properly, to measuring their adoption and to proving their value and keeping them around, and then ultimately expanding them. That's really what the SaaS companies look at with their metrics, the way they measure things. So for a publisher who's used to one-off campaigns, they've got to make a mindset shift. And that's a big thing. You're not optimizing CPMs, you're optimizing customer lifetime value. You're looking for churn, you're reducing your onboarding time, you're expanding revenue. It's really critical because the old model is very fragile. We've seen that over the last many years. If your revenue depends on going after new sales over and over, and by the way, market managers tell me across TV, newspaper, and radio that in their markets, they see between 30 to 50% churn on a monthly basis. If you have to start every month just getting back to zero, that is a problem, right? You're going for new campaigns over and over. That's very volatile. You've got a lot of compression in your margins. So recurring models are very stable. You can forecast them well. You can compound your growth. So get away from the 30 to 50% churn. That's not a business model that you're looking for. Get them in place, get them onboarded and so forth. So for me, campaigns are transactions. SaaS really is a relationship that has a scoreboard. And so here's the flywheel that I'll mention throughout this discussion here. Acquire the advertiser, onboard them, adopt them, prove ROI, get retention, and then expand them. That's the flywheel that we're looking for that's different than the campaigns that we were used to in the past.
So we're really looking more at a kind of relationship between the publisher and the advertiser as a life cycle, right? It's not this one-off. It's not this kind of like, all right, I'm going to sell you this and maybe see you again next year and maybe not. It's really becoming a provider of versatile business solutions that engage the advertiser beyond just traditional lead generation or advertising. So essentially, we're moving away from this like one and done ad concept. So how do publishers successfully leap to this monthly recurring revenue or MRR model? And how is this really reshaping the future of this industry as a whole?
So I'm going to do a little bit of an audible here and get a little bit more SaaS-wonky than maybe you want me to, and that's okay.
That's okay.
The definition of MRR, monthly recurring revenue. Okay, if we think about MRR, and you think about 30 to 50% of that revenue drops off every month and you have to go get new revenue, right? In the SaaS model, they're looking for 90% or more, what they call GRR, okay? So gross revenue retention. So instead of 30 to 50% churn, they're expecting only 10% churn. And then they're looking for 110 to 120% what they call net revenue retention. So you're retaining 90% of that book, but then with the growth, you're getting to actually 110, 120%. Think about that differently than this 30 to 50% churn that we have on a monthly basis, okay? So you get to MRR, you get to GRR and NRR, really when you start thinking about what are the outcomes for the advertiser. You're focused on what are you doing to draw that line between the performance of the campaign and the outcome, the sales response for that advertiser, right? Think of not flights like we're used to, but think of always on, something that's there and it recurs. So it's things like monthly packages. I don't care what you call them, but it's a starter package, a growth package, a scale package, right? Or think about the bundle being not just impressions, right? It's local distribution. It's adding creative in there. It's giving landing pages or lead capture pages. It's retargeting. It's reporting. It's all of those things as a bundle, not simply how many impressions would you like to buy. And then many media companies have their own internal agencies or white labeled products and so forth. So it might be adding SEO or reputation management. It's email or SMS. It's short form videos. It's events or sponsorships. All of these things really help these media companies define something that will lock in long-term partnerships where that publisher owns the ongoing optimization instead of these one-off flights here and there. Monthly recurring revenue really lets you fund your business better because you can forecast it. You know that you don't have this 30 to 50% churn that's going to happen on a regular basis. And that helps you then invest in better talent, better technology. That's going to improve your results. And then that again is going to help you to reduce your churn. So for me, it's moving from buy this campaign to subscribe to growth. Again, it's this flywheel of acquire, onboard, adopt, prove ROI, retain, and then expand.
So when you talk about proving ROI, this is something that comes up in a lot of conversations. We work very closely with these small business advertisers. And something that often comes up in conversations is to what extent ROI is used as an instrument to measure, am I even getting anything out of this relationship with my media partner? So in one of our recent reports, we found that 68% of local businesses will leave their media publisher or advertising provider because there's this perceived lack of ROI. So how critical, in your opinion, is it for publishers to own the lead management layer? Because that's possibly what's going to take them from what am I actually getting out of this relationship to I completely understand the leads that are coming through and I have all the tools I need to convert them. So what can media companies do in 2026 to close this ROI gap and prove that they're worth their advertisers' while and that advertiser is going to come back and spend and build this long-term relationship with the media publisher?
Okay, so I'm talking about 30 to 50% monthly churn. This number of 68 certainly is built into that somewhere, right? Many of those 30 to 50% are clearly leaving because of that number you mentioned is that they're not being able to show that ROI. Okay, so it's critical. Most of the time, churn isn't because leads are bad. It's because the lead didn't ever become revenue and nobody could show what happened, all right? As media companies, we've often bought tracking numbers to be able to put in place. We've tried to train the front desk so that when someone calls in, you'll say, hey, where did you hear about us? It's being able to say, okay, this lead came in, but I could tie it to an outcome of some kind. What media companies end up doing is reporting clicks. They don't show outcomes. And so the perception becomes a reality of you gave me a lot of clicks, but you didn't necessarily give me any revenue or whatever, right? So when you have to take the advertiser's word on what did or didn't happen, you don't get to control your own destiny. That's why we've tried to train these front desks, why we've put these tracking numbers in place and so forth. So for me in 2026, closing that ROI gap really means three things. Track the lead beyond the click, right? Get a form fill, get a call, get a booking, get a closed sale of some kind. Those things show much more ROI than simply a click or some type of high funnel attribution. Build a follow-up system. The faster you can get speed to lead and you can nurture that helps to tie whether or not you're able to convert something in, okay? And have a shared scoreboard of some kind. Show the pipeline that was created, show the appointments that were set, show the revenue that was influenced. Those types of things are going to help these publishers win because they're going to take responsibility for the conversion itself by showing some type of tools in the CRM that the SMB has, by integrating with what they already have in place, by partnering with a provider that will help them to show that, right? If you can't show the line from spend to the sale, it's inevitable that you're going to have churn. So again, I would say If you only measure traffic, you can't manage ROI. And that gets back again to this flywheel: acquire, onboard, adopt, prove ROI, retain, and expand.
I remember there was a time where everyone was talking about how the duopoly, Google and Facebook, are such a threat to traditional publishing companies. And at the time, it was said that the main kind of the advantage these performance marketing platforms have is the attribution, right? So they're able to say, you spent X amount of dollars and received Y amount of leads. But now we're taking that a step further and saying, not only that you need to tell your advertiser how many leads you're generating, you have to give the advertiser the tools that advertisers need to turn that lead into something, because just a lead doesn't equal money in the bank. And at the end, the advertiser dollars are being spent because the advertiser wants to see that money in the bank. ROI is going beyond the lead here. And you've often said, we've heard you say this many times, that media companies have a go-to-market problem, not a product problem. So since 19% of small business advertisers really struggle to convert the traffic they receive, is it time for these publishers to stop being these traffic drivers and start becoming business operating systems? And how can they even achieve this? This is a major shift we're talking about.
So Rachel, the keyword that you use there for me is system. People who've worked with me in the past know I'm passionate about things that will create definable, measurable, and repeatable results. And you only get that if you've got a process or a system in place. Call it a playbook, call it a framework, whatever you want to call it. You've got to have that in place. SMBs don't necessarily need more traffic. They need a system that takes what they are getting, the attention that turns those into customers. So when their ad is viewed, when their ad is heard, when someone comes on site, when someone downloads something, that attention that they're getting needs to transfer into a customer. And the system is what should be able to help that to happen for them. Publishers have this advantage that they have the audience. They've got the trust. Whether it's a TV, newspaper, or radio brand, people know them and they trust them. So they've got that audience in place. The piece that's missing is this go-to-market system. It's this post-click operating layer and so forth, or post audio here or video C, right? It's the attention that gets turned into that customer. So becoming this system, this business operating system, let's call it, it doesn't mean building everything from scratch. You may have a lot of that, or the SMB has a lot of that as well. It means putting it all together in one operating system, one tech stack, if you will, where you've got demand creation. So you've got content, you've got newsletters and social and programmatic and sponsorships. Then you've got demand capture, landing pages, forms, calls, booking, and so forth. You've got demand conversion, so automation, email, SMS, CRM, reputation management. And then you've got proof of the outcome. You've got closed loop reporting, quarterly business reviews, and so forth. Many publishers have used a tap clicks or a dashboard. That's a good start, no doubt about it. That's part of the system. So they have some of these pieces in place, but packaging it all together, pricing it properly for a monthly recurring revenue, onboarding correctly, and managing the adoption, that's what SaaS companies do, and where media companies really can take a page out of their playbook. So again, I'm going to say we don't need more products. We need a coherent go-to-market and an operating system, right? That's the business operating system that we're looking to build.
You're talking about these systems and systems that can become really elaborate with lots of moving pieces. And I guess the kind of elephant in the room here is to actually talk about AI. Systems, what systems were 5 years ago or 3 years ago is light years away of where these systems are today, because today we have these AI agents that are running in the background, changing the way users interact with SaaS and essentially changing the SaaS proposition that any publisher or any SMB advertiser provider can bring to market. So let's talk about AI for a minute. And if we were having this conversation a year ago, AI would probably be something that some media publishers are experimenting with or thinking about a little bit. But I think now, February 2026, every company, every executive wakes up in the morning and says to themselves, I really need to be doing more with AI and on a personal level and on an organizational level. So to what extent do you see publishers really integrating AI into their current advertiser propositions? And do you think there's a chance they can even afford not to at this point?
So ultimately, AI is going to become table stakes. I'm sure you're using it on a daily basis, and so am I. And I'm testing the things that work for me and the things that don't. And that's what we're all doing. And that's what publishers are doing as well. They should integrate AI, but for me, especially on the revenue side of things, they should be looking specifically for things where it improves speed, where it improves performance, and where it improves retention. They might be having other things that it's improving as well, but those things are the critical things that will help them to build this MRR engine, this business operating system that they're trying to put together. It's not just shiny new things and so forth. So practical uses within that: faster creative production and faster testing of variants, smarter segmentation of audiences and personalizing the offer, automating reports, okay, insights that you get from that help the SMBs to know where to go and what to do, sales enablement, so proposal generation, account planning, getting objections handled and so forth, those kinds of things, onboarding, customer success, playbooks, proactively preventing churn. Those are the kinds of things that if AI can help you with that as a media company, those are the things to invest in, not the shiny new objects that don't necessarily do that. You asked about, can they afford to or to not to? In my view, they can't afford not to, because AI is certainly going to lower the cost of delivering the service. If platforms and agencies, these publishers, can deliver outcomes faster and cheaper than AI, publishers are going to lose out on that. They're going to need to match the efficiency, or they're going to lose out on the economics. So AI isn't the strategy, but it's an accelerator for a recurring outcomes model for this MRR, ARR that you're trying to build to look more like a SaaS company.
So it sounds like the answer is they definitely cannot afford not to be part of the revolution and bring AI both for internal use as well as embed it in their proposition to advertisers. The more I think about it, the more I realize it's probably two steps we're looking at, right? We're probably looking at how does a publisher bring AI in internally to scale and be smarter and move faster and leverage more cross-sell opportunities based on smarter segmentation and maybe even automation of some of the upsell processes. But then there's a bigger question where advertisers themselves are going to start expecting to see AI in a publisher or media company's proposition. And the media companies that are baking AI into their proposition are probably going to capture that market segment that is already realizing, hey, I'm not going to work with a company that doesn't have AI as part of their proposition.
Absolutely. It certainly will be table stakes. Everyone is saying AI for AI's sake, but at some point, people are going to be saying AI for performance sake because they're noticing the differences. And so if you're going out to market, use us because we're AI enabled, that might work. But if it doesn't lead to the outcomes and the performance that you're looking for, again, it goes back to the threads of this entire conversation has been, we need to do things differently than we've done in the past. And so if we're just putting AI over the top of what we've been doing, that's not going to make the difference. But if we're doing things differently and building for this monthly recurring revenue, the decreased churn and so forth, and AI is helping us to get there, that's going to make the difference. The publisher who says we've got AI and goes out and doesn't get better performance for the advertiser will not survive any better than the publisher who doesn't say they have AI and still don't get the performance for the advertiser. Ultimately, we've got to show the business outcomes and that we're tying that attention and the performance to some type of improvement in revenue or retention or both.
And it's funny that I feel like you're becoming more and more of an AI advocate. But for anyone that's been following your content for a while, you are a big advocate of SaaS-ification of media. So if you were sitting now with a publisher today who is still 90% reliant on traditional revenue, what does it actually mean to run a media company like a software business or a software and AI business? And what is the very first SaaS metric you tell them to start tracking tomorrow?
If they're 90% reliant on traditional, there's a bigger problem right now, given where we are today.
Yeah.
I've been in the local media space since 2009, and we've been beating the drum since 2009 on digital. But let's say no matter where they are with their regard to their mix of traditional and digital, we really have to look at what are they doing currently. We have to look at Are they acting like a SaaS company? And there are two ways to look at what they're doing there. Number one, introduce a subscription package of some kind that solves a painful problem for a segment of your advertisers. Not something that's based on flights, not something that's based on campaigns, something that is a subscription on a monthly basis that solves a problem of some kind. You're going to know what that is in your markets, and you're going to know what that is in your media, whether it's newspaper, TV, or radio, okay? Once you've built that and you've started to do that, where you're getting the subscriptions in place, where you're getting folks who aren't just coming in for a 90-day flight and then they're leaving, then build the retention muscle, right? Because recurring only is going to happen if you control the churn. It gets back to this market managers telling me that they see 30 to 50% monthly churn. If you don't have something that's going to reduce that churn, no matter what subscription you have, you're going to keep on pouring dollars in the top, but the hole in the bottom, the bucket, is going to cause that to not get you where you need to be. Again, I'll get a little wonky on some of these metrics. I referenced this earlier, two of these most critical ones, but the first thing I would start tracking tomorrow is GRR, gross revenue retention. That's the percentage of the dollars that you get that you retain on a gross basis, okay? So each month, if you have 10% churn, then you have a GRR of 90%. Think of that versus a 50% churn, which is a 50% gross revenue retention, okay? That really forces you to look in the mirror, right? If your GRR is low, you don't have a growth model. You got a hole in the bucket. You're just running on a treadmill and you're never getting where you actually want to get, right? That tells you if you're keeping the dollars, not just customers. Then I mentioned net revenue retention, which is how much are you keeping gross revenue, but then with growth and with additional sell-in, most SaaS companies are looking for 110% or 120%, what they call net revenue retention, right? So you keep 90, but then you put 20, 30% on top of that. So you're growing instead of just trying to tread water, right? So there's gross revenue retention, net revenue retention. Are you managing and measuring your churn? Are you looking at your customer acquisition cost? But GRR is probably the one that I would say most. So let's go back to this flywheel that I've talked about. Acquire, onboard, adopt, prove ROI, retain, and expand, okay? If you're living with 15, 30, 50% monthly churn, you're not growing, right? You're just replacing your losses. That's not an ad product problem. It's a business model problem. It's a retention problem. That's why I say that publishers don't have a product problem. They have a go-to-market problem, right? What's the business model that's going to help you to retain and to grow that business?